Hi, sweet friends. It's me, Miss Sam, and my very special friends, Wyatt and Mr. Wiggles. Mr. Wiggles and Wyatt and I were just talking about friends.
My best friend is my monster brother, Mr. Scribbles.
Nice. Wyatt and I have a lot of friends. Do you have a special friend that you love?
Miss Sam, does the Bible have anything to say about friends?
It sure does. The Bible tells us to love our neighbor. Do you know what that means?
Do I give a Valentine to the guy next door?
Not exactly, Mr. Wiggles. Let's start with this. A great website, missionbibleclass.org, explains that whenever Jesus would go somewhere, people would follow him to hear him tell about God. They loved to hear him tell parables. Parables were stories that helped people understand important lessons. Once a man who was an expert in the law of God asked Jesus a question. Teacher, what must I do to live forever? Well, Jesus knew that the man was an expert in God's Old Testament laws, which are the laws that were in place before Jesus came and died for us. So he asked the man what the Old Testament law said that a person must do to live forever. And the man's answer was, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. That is the way to live forever. Jesus told the man that he was right, and that was the greatest commandment. And then the man asked about loving your neighbor as yourself. Like, did he have to love all of his neighbors, or just like the ones that lived close by, or the ones he liked? Well, he asked Jesus, who is my neighbor? So instead of telling him the answer, Jesus told the parable. And this is the parable. A man was traveling from Jerusalem to the town of Jericho. He was by himself. And while he was on the road, some robbers attacked him. They beat him up and they took everything he had, and they even took his clothes. He was naked and beaten up on the side of the road. Now, he waited for somebody to help him. He waited and waited and waited and waited
And waited.
and waited and waited, and nobody came. So a priest came walking up by the road. Now, priests were God's helpers in the temple or the church. They knew how to worship God. That was their job. They knew all of the rules of God. Do you think the priest helped the man? No. The priest went on the other side of the road and passed right by the man without helping. Now, a Levite came along the road. Levites knew all of God's laws. They were good Jewish people. Do you think the Levite stopped and helped the man? No. The Levite looked at the man and crossed the road and walked right past him. Yeah. Finally, a man from Samaria came along the road. Now, the Jewish people didn't like people from Samaria. Everybody thought that the Samaritans would never help anybody. But this Samaritan was good. He saw the man on the road, and he stopped to help. And he put oil and wine on the man's ouchies, because that's what they used for medicine in those days. So he lifted the man up on his donkey, which is kind of what you would use if you didn't have a horse. It's another kind of animal. They can carry a whole lot of stuff. But they put him on top of his donkey, and he took him to a local inn, or like a hotel or somebody's place where he could stay. He took care of the man all night to make sure he was going to be okay. The next morning, the Samaritan had to leave to continue on to his journey. So he wanted to make sure that the injured man was taken care of, so he gave money to the innkeeper. He gave him enough money so the man could stay at the inn for 2 months. He even told the innkeeper that he would come back by next time he was traveling and pay more money if the man was still sick. Everyone was surprised to hear about this parable. When Jesus was finished, he asked the expert in the law of God a question. 3 men went on the road that day, the priest, the Levite, and the Samaritan. Which of these men do you think was a neighbor to the man who was beaten and robbed? What do you think the expert in the law of God answered? Well, that's right. The Samaritan was a neighbor. Helping anybody who needs help is being the kind of neighbor that God wants. You don't even have to know the person. We should just help because they need help. A neighbor is somebody near to you. It can be somebody you go to school with or somebody you play with when you go out to eat and there's a play place and you're just playing with somebody you met. It could be someone you know down the road. It could be somebody you don't even know at all. The Bible tells us to love our neighbor, and what that means is to love the people around us, including our friends, our neighbors, our family, and the people that we meet and see every day.
I'm confused. How should we act when we meet another person? Monsters behave very differently. Usually we just try to eat them.
Well, we should be a good friend, Mr. Wiggles, not eat them. Good friends are nice. They listen and they're respectful. That means that you don't make other people feel bad if you think a different way than they do. It's okay to disagree with somebody, but it's never okay to act ugly towards somebody else. And it's never okay to eat them. We want to be sweet to others. We should treat others the way that we would want somebody to treat us. It's a good practice to ask ourselves how Jesus would treat someone. If somebody was hungry, Jesus would feed them. If somebody were cold, we would give them a blanket. If someone was sad, we would cheer them up. We should do that too. That's how you're a good friend.
Can we make a craft today that we can give to a neighbor?
We sure can. Let's make some friendship bracelets, and we can make 2 or as many as you want. You can keep one, and you can give the other to someone else. Now, in your craft kit that you got from Miss Sam, you have a bag of beads. I've used some of mine already, so my bag is a little smaller than yours, but you should have a nice big bag of these beads.
And you'll need a string.
You'll need some string that you have in here. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut a piece that's long enough that it's going to go around your wrist and have plenty of room to tie. So I'm going to cut it about right here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use our safety scissors that Miss Sam included in your kit, and we're going to cut it
in half.
And then you're going to take your beads, and you can make any design that you want to. You can put the beads on there, and when you start with your first bead, just make a little knot around it. You can ask for a grown-up's help.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, it's okay to ask for help. That's why we're here. So I made a knot around my first bead, and so now I can just string on the ones that I like. If you'd rather, you can also use a pipe cleaner to make one, like Wyatt made.
This is the example.
That's beautiful.
I used a pipe cleaner to string it off with.
That's perfect. Either way is perfect. Be creative and have your parents send me a picture of what you've made. I hope you'll make one for you and maybe make another one for a friend, or maybe just hang on to it and wait till you find somebody who could use a little bit of cheering up that day.
Yeah. I made lots of them so I can give them to the people I meet.
That's great, Wyatt. I bet that took a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes being a good friend is hard work too, but it's always worth it. We have to go for now. See you soon, sweet friends.
Bye.